Okay, so today's random phrase generated, sponsored and thank you, sponsored by Chatty. I said, Chatty, do you know those flashcard games where they're kind of like styled prompts, but it's helping to like initiate conversations or tell stories? She obviously understood what I was talking about. And then I said, okay, create some kind of prompt that I could do for this video for today. And the video or the prompt that she came up for my video today is, what kind of invention would make your morning routine 10 times easier? So this is something that I've actually loved to talk about because it actually correlates to the meta vibe, or what I call transcendent affirmations. So let me describe this to you real quick. So there are 5 different brain states or wavelengths that our brain is oscillating in throughout the day. Symbolically, or not even symbolically, but from an evolutionary standpoint, even as we are like newborns till about 12, 13 years old, we kind of, for the most part, stay in these phases. First one's delta, then theta, then alpha, then beta, and then gamma. And these are different frequencies that our brains sit in. And when we are in one of those states, one of those alpha state or a theta state or a delta state or a beta state or even gamma state, there's different things that happen within the brain. And so I'm going to touch on two of these different topics and how this invention I have rattling in my brain helps morning routines go 10 times easier. And so let's take this route. So when everyone is born as a newborn, for the most of the first like year, 2 years of your life, you're sitting mostly in a state of delta. Delta is when you go into a state of unconsciousness. When you go into deep sleep, your brain will kind of fall down into this very low frequency called the delta. And it's where your body is like really recovering. It's just, it's where hormones are really released, and hormones are being released, your body's recovering, but it's also growing, which makes a whole lot of sense as a newborn, right? Because that's all you're doing. You're just sleeping, you're recovering because you're growing so much, and then your body's also trying to like regulate hormonal dosage, like regulate hormones as it's trying to grow. And so it's definitely going to need to sleep a lot, and it falls into this delta wavelength. It's deep sleep. From like 1 to 4, you kind of sit in what's called the theta state. Now, if your brain is in a theta state, it's where it's like reality meshes with the imagination. You're very, very impressionable. It's taking like, it's where beliefs are kind of rewired. And the way that you look at your life and like core memories or things that like end up being anchor points for how you see life and how you respond to life for the rest of your life is oftentimes like formulated when you're in a theta state. Now, we hit a theta state every single day, twice. But as from 2 to 4 or 5-year-olds, you're almost, for the most part, always in a theta state, the brain is, where it's just kind of like a sponge. It's just absorbing the world. And through this like meandering and bumping into things, you're kind of beginning to figure out what are the boundaries of the world and what kind of belief systems you need to integrate into your psyche to help you navigate for the rest of your life. Which is why, the years between 2 and 5 are so important and so impactful, because that's kind of like where you develop all of your core values and your beliefs, whether you know it or not. After that, from about 5 to 12, you go into like an alpha state. And an alpha state is where you start to kind of like, you build on what you have kind of created in the theta state. But this is where like you get really kind of creative and you begin to riff or express yourself based on this foundation that you've built in theta. So this is where, athletes and artists when they get into the zone or when they're just flowing with ideas, it's often because they're in like a really, really deep or tense state of alpha, right? So that's the alpha state. So this is where like identity begins to be built. So the identity is built between, like 5 all the way up to 12 years old. You start to figure out the kind of kids you like to hang out with, what you like, what you don't like. You start developing opinions. You start to become kind of like what you would say is like conscious. And you're also starting to be held responsible for your actions in this phase. So that's alpha. Then from about 12 until the rest of your life, you sit in beta most of the day. This is like hard crunching, calculating. Your mind's always like running. And it's like when you have to solve some kind of logistical problem or even a arithmetic problem, like 2 + 2 = 4, you're going to be using beta, or you're going to be in a state of beta to make those calculations, to make those quick judgments. And we kind of sit in this stage from 12 until death. And almost all day is kind of being sat in this beta state. It's a very long way to get around to talking about what this one invention is to make your life 10 times easier, or your morning routine 10 times easier. But there is a purpose for this. So now let's bring it to us. Okay, I'm in a beta state right now. What does this mean? Why did Carrie say that I enter an alpha state and a theta state twice every single day? Is because as we go to bed and as we wake up, we are actually ascending and descending out of these different phases. So if we're lucky, we got really high quality sleep, then we had entered a deep sleep or delta wavelength for at least 30 minutes. It's best if you can be in a state of delta or a deep sleep for about 2 hours, up to 2 hours every night. But you cannot really go from delta and then all the way up to beta. You have to ascend through each of the wavelengths and then descend into it. And so when you get into delta, you'll ascend out of it into theta and then alpha and then into beta. So when you wake up in the morning, right when you wake up, you are in like a theta state, kind of semi-conscious, kind of like, oh, whatever, and you're very impressionable. And it kind of feels like you're in a dream state. Kind of like you're kind of in reality, but you're not kind of in reality. You're kind of like in imagination, but also reality. And then you slowly ascend out of theta and you go into alpha. And alpha is kind of like, I'm kind of calm and I can feel very creative in this moment. Maybe I can express myself and, interesting. Like in your brain, as it's been asleep, the unconscious has been organizing all of the information and all the exposure and experiences that you've had in the last 24 hours and kind of consolidating it and then jam-packing it into your foundation, your belief system. And then when you get into this alpha state the next day, right in the morning, you kind of are like, wow, my thoughts seem so much clearer. Like now I know how to kind of address this problem, and it's like very unique, and it's because you're in that theta stage, alpha stage. And then you ascend into beta, and then just the whole rest of the day is just like running errands, talking to people, finishing projects, that kind of stuff, until you get to the evening. And when you go to bed, you do this exact same process, but backwards, right? So you go to bed, you're in beta, and then you are slowly going to sleep. And as you slowly go to sleep, you descend into alpha. And then you slowly descend into theta. And then you kind of oscillate between theta, delta, alpha throughout the night as you're kind of going into different REM cycles. So what does this mean? And that means that about 15 minutes in the morning, right when you wake up, and 15 minutes right before you go to bed, you are very, very impressionable, very susceptible, receptive, open, and impressionable to prompts, input, things like that, because your brain is kind of like in this imagination value structure system. And at the same time, it's kind of like dancing between imagination and reality. and you've got core problems that you're dealing with that are kind of mixed and sprinkled in between this weird phase that you're in. And so if you're entering a theta and an alpha stage every single morning and every single night, meaning twice daily, then this is a great way to prime yourself to rewire your brain, rewire your thinking, rewire your beliefs, and also input information that is what might be really difficult to kind of take in if you're sitting in beta trying to like jam it in consciously. And so what would be my suggestion? My suggestion would be, if I were to create an invention, which is what I'm getting to, it's the transcendent affirmations, it's the meta vibe. If I was to create an invention that would make your morning routine 10 times easier, it would be creating what I call transcendent affirmations, dubbed over with binaural beats. And these binaural beats are hitting a different frequency for alpha or a theta state. And then you dub that over with your own voice, talking in the first person present tense gerund form, and the third person as if you were pretending to talk in someone else's voice. And I'll give an example so this makes sense. Talking about you doing that thing or being that thing, okay? So a simple example would be like, you could do a run of affirmations that would be like, I am designing a life that fulfills me. 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 So you're using the same sentence. You are stating it. You're doing a voice recording, but you're adding emphasis in different places. You're slowing or speeding up the cadence of how you say that sentence. You say it in like 100 different ways while you're voice recording it. Then you could be like, maybe you've got a best friend. My best friend is Mikey, right? And so I would pretend like I am Mikey, and like Mikey is talking to someone else about me. And they're sitting at a restaurant, and they're sitting at this table next to the window, and he's talking about me. I call it positive gossip, positive drama. He's talking about me and to this person that I've never met. And I'm kind of like, as a ghost, I'm observing him talking about me to this stranger in this restaurant. And he's like, yeah, did you know that, like, have you ever met Carrie? Carrie is like, he is designing a life that fulfills him. He's like designing a life that fulfills him. Like, Carrie is designing a life that fulfills him. Carrie is designing a life that fulfills him. Carrie designs a life that fulfills him. Carrie is designing a life that fulfills him. And so it's like me kind of like watching, like, whoa, Mike is talking so many good things about me. Wow, I can't believe he's gossiping about this person. Okay, you do this voice recording. It's 5-10 minutes long. It's you just repeating the same affirmation. There's another one, it's called a guided visualization tour. That's something else I'm going to talk about later on. But for this purpose, right? You do this transcendent affirmation. You record yourself in the first person, present tense, gerund form, talking about one thing, and you say that sentence 100 times while recording it, and you put like enunciation, and you play with the cadence, the speed, the volume, all that different stuff in saying the same sentence over and over again. And then you do third person gerund, present tense, as if your best friend or someone you look up to or someone you respect or idolize even is talking about you behind your back at a restaurant, talking about you to someone else. Okay, you take all this stuff, then you dub it over with binaural beats and some kind of frequency that oscillates on a theta wavelength or an alpha wavelength. You jam pack this all together, and now you've created this transcendent affirmation, this voice recording that runs for about 15 minutes. And every morning when I wake up, what I do is I intentionally say, okay, when do I have to be up, ready to go? Let's say that time is 6:30, okay? I need to be up, ready to go, starting to get stuff done at 6:30 in the morning. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to set my alarm for 6 a.m., okay? Set it for 6 a.m. The second I wake up, I go right into the bathroom and I drink 10 to 15 gulps of ice water, cold water. And on the last gulp, I put down all of my morning pills. Then I go immediately back to bed. Immediately back to bed. I throw my AirPods in, and what do I listen to? I listen to my transcendent affirmations until I have to wake up at 6:30, or oftentimes it's me having to go to the bathroom, like really bad. But because I wake up and I'm like, oh, all right, I gotta get to the bathroom. I get my pills, drink, okay, all right. I'm still in an alpha theta state. I'm still in a impressionable, the world is kind of mixed with my imagination, but I can't really tell the difference between what is real and what is not, and what do I really believe, and what problem am I working on right now? And oh, my subconscious is really connected to my conscious brain at this moment because I'm sitting in this phase. And I go, I'm tapping into like infinite wisdom, which is my subconscious, and it has unlimited computing power, and it's tapping into the universe and everything that I've ever consumed or talking about. And I'm in this like weird, crazy, amazing, potentially transcendent state. And I take my gulps of water. I take my pills. I go back to bed. I put my AirPods in, and then I start my transcendent affirmations. And what do? I do nothing. All I do is I try to go back to sleep. That's it. I'm just sitting there, just going back to sleep. And I've got this, I am designing a life that fulfills me. I am designing a life that fulfills me. Like, hey, have you ever met Carrie? Carrie is like, he is designing a life that fulfills him. Like he's designing a life that fulfills him. Like, I am designing a life that fulfills me. I am designing a life that fulfills me. I am designing a life that fulfills me. And it just keeps saying it, and I'm hearing the binaural beats, which keeps me in an alpha theta state. And I'm in an alpha theta state, and I'm saying these transcendent affirmations over and over and over and over again on repeat while I'm sitting in this like weird phase. And you know what ends up happening? Every single day is I come up with some like epiphany. Oh my gosh. I just need to tweak this on that workflow, and it's going to save me 15 minutes. And by saving myself 15 minutes, it's actually going to allow me to do this, and this, and this. And then I'm going to reach my goals. I'm going to reach my goals a month and a half sooner than I had actually anticipated just by coming up with a simple idea. And you go from a theta and an alpha state to artificially creating what's called the binding effect, which is creating literal physiological new neural pathways, grooves into your brain on solutions on how to solve problems that you're currently dealing with. And the way that it happens is your brain, you kind of like are straddling. The way that I would describe it is I'm straddling. So, all right. So imagine that this right here, like, here's a good example. I got a line right here. This side is alpha, and this side is theta. And it's kind of like you've created this perfect environment where you've got one foot in one realm and you've got another foot in another realm, and you're kind of straddling it. And this right here, right, this chasm or this veil, right, this wall between the theta and the alpha worlds is you begin to permeate it, and through osmosis you take your value structure, your characteristics, your beliefs, and then you take your authenticity, what you like, what you don't like, the problems that you're dealing with, you slap that on top of it, you slap your subconscious on top of that. You're sitting in this transcendent affirmations, talking about yourself, better shaping and molding your belief system and your values. And then you're also thinking about creative, unique, flowy, personally awesome ways that authentically you can like go towards talking about the problems. You've dubbed over these like transcendent affirmations. And what ends up happening is this gap right here, you end up coming up with these ideas. And while you're in this weird realm, You come up with these ideas, and what ends up happening is they've been able to physiologically watch this happen, like on brain scans. And your brain frequencies go like, and it like super speeds. It goes like, it 4x's a usual beta. So your brain frequencies will go from like a, 15 frequency rate, and it could jump, which is I'm sorry. It's somewhere in between the theta and the alpha state, which is somewhere around 10. Like 8 to 12 is like you keep oscillating between these two theta and alpha states. Then it goes like one of those fireworks, and it speeds up, and it jumps up to like 50 or 60 hertz, 60 frequency, like cycles per second. So you're at 8 to 12, then it jumps up to 60, and you jump in, you basically skip beta because you're hauling butt so fast that you go right up to gamma. And when you get into a gamma, physiologically, your body doesn't know how to respond to this other than like a state of like euphoria. So it's like this, and your brain literally sears a new neural pathway in your brain for this new idea. This binding effect is what they call it. And what ends up happening is you have a moment of euphoria. Like they've been able to capture this like idea, like inspiration. Where does inspiration usually happen? In a state of meditation. How do you meditate? You meditate to get into an alpha theta state, and you kind of subconsciously, you tap into your breathing methods. You go into a state of meditation. That means you're out of beta, you've fallen into alpha theta, and now you're in this impressionable state. And if you can sit with it long enough, basically by the vacillating, the oscillating between the two phases, your brain, basically all of it comes together and synthesizes a great idea, a solution, a novel, unique solution to the problem or the context that you have at hand, jumps you up to gamma. The brain binds it because it goes through beta, which basically it calculates like, is this feasible? Is this possible? Well, that's oh yes, it is. And then it verifies it, validates it, and then seals it, binds it. And then you go back down to it and you have a state of euphoria. So basically I do these morning routines, and oftentimes what'll happen is I will literally come out of alpha and theta, go right into beta because I'm descending from gamma, going like, oh my gosh, I've got a brilliant idea. I gotta go write this down. I gotta go do this right now. And so, and then I go and do that thing. I go and list it down. I go and shorten or trim the process that saves me 15 minutes, that enables me to reach my goals a month and a half sooner, or I'll come up with some disparate, wild, crazy, kooky idea. And it's like, that solves like all of the issues. It solves all my issues. And so what is the one invention that I am trying to create that will make your morning routine and your nightly routine 10 times easier, 10 times more effective? It's not even the morning routine at all, but it'll make your life a form of leverage by just tapping into the cycles that you're already running into. It's by formulating a transcendent affirmation for yourself, knowing what your goals are. Maybe it's to lose weight. Maybe it's to accomplish something physically, like running a marathon. Maybe it's getting in shape. Maybe it's you've got this crazy problem at work and you don't know how to solve it, but it's got to get solved. Like whatever it is, you can orient yourself around that thing, whether it's a state, like I am physically in shape, or it's a state of being, like I am running marathons, or whatever. Come up with that goal, then make it first person, present tense, gerund. Come up with a sentence that does that thing, and then spend 10 minutes repeating that same sentence in that first person and changing the variations, the volume, the cadence, the speed, the enunciation, the emphasis on certain words within that sentence using your own voice. And then do the same thing. Identify someone who you respect, who you love, who you look up to, or who you idolize even. Someone you admire, right? And then imagine that person sitting in like a restaurant or sitting in like a public area, and they're like gossiping. They're talking to someone else you don't know, but they're doing it about you. and do the same thing. Take the same present tense gerund sentence that you're trying to do, and then have it be in the third person format. And it's you watching someone right here, and you're just like, wow. And just listening to, in my case, it would be Mikey being like, man, Carrie is just constantly running marathons. Did you know Carrie's running marathons? And basically make it so you create this weird fake scenario in your brain, and then dub it over with binaural beats, dub it over with an alpha theta frequency, put it all together in a 15-minute audio recording. And then every morning that you wake up, no, I gotta wake up at this time. So Carrie's told me I'll wake up 30 minutes earlier. When I wake up 30 minutes earlier, I'm gonna drink a ton of water. I'm gonna take my morning supplements, if you do that, which I highly suggest you do. And then go right back to bed, put my headphones in, put my AirPods in, and I'm just going to listen to this looped transcendent affirmations thing this wild, stupid thing Carrie has told me about. And I'm just gonna try to fall back asleep. Now, if you're worried that you're actually going to fall back asleep, set an alarm for 6:30, but make it so that you're sitting in this realm, alpha, theta, alpha, theta, alpha, theta, listening to these transcendent beats with these transcendent affirmations. And that's further emphasizing and intensifying the alpha, theta, while trying to go back to sleep. And you will begin to tap into the universe, the subconscious, or God, in helping you solve current problems, because you're living in this world that's not like, it's imaginary and it's real, and coming up with these great grand ideas. So how would it make your morning routine easier? It inspires you. It literally breathes life into you. That's what inspire means, right? To breathe life into. Oh my gosh, I have a great idea. It's that euphoric moment. It's the binding effect. And then the same thing for when you go to bed. So you take everything that you've experienced throughout the day, and you go to sleep listening to your affirmations. I'm designing a life that fulfills me. I am designing a life that fulfills me. I am designing a life that fulfills me. I am running marathons. I am designing my diet around running marathons. I am naturally running marathons. I am receptive to just getting all the right information naturally to running marathons. Like, you just keep wrapping it around this one concept. And as you go to bed, your brain will be like, oh, I know what he wants. He wants to be able to run marathons. Okay, what happened today that I could take and to help him run marathons? Okay, then you wake up the next morning, you do the same thing all over again. And that is what I feel is an invention that will make your morning routines 10 times easier.